G'day folks, welcome to another edition of Talking SANFL. Let's get straight into it. Round 6 is done and dusted and we'll get into our iPerform insight. Let's start with West Adelaide taking on Norwood. Once again, another week goes by and we sit here and say, wow, Norwood are still somehow winless. G'day to you, Mints.
G'day, Hazy. It's a story that if you're a Norwood fan, I remember when we played them in round 1 and I heard a couple of their fans in the stand say, we'll only lose 3 or 4 games this year. Well, they might not win that many games. They are in an absolute hole at the moment. They went to Port Lincoln where they won last year by 70 or upwards of 70 points. You feel like this is the game. Get away from home, galvanise the group. This is the opportunity to get the season just rolling. And they had the game to win. They were up by 15 points in the third quarter and West Adelaide just come rolling over the top.
And on the flip side of that, and credit where it's due, West Adelaide, who I think a lot of people are saying it's going to be really, really tough this year and maybe beyond. They're showing that the future is bright, and good to see Adam Hartley get his second win as senior coach.
It really is. They're a team that's won the last 4 wooden spoons, so you don't expect a lot from them with the names that have gone out and their recent form over the previous years, but impressive for them to get their second win this year, and they've been in every game as well. And if we move to another game, this one's going to come up a little bit in our sample summary as we progress along here, but Glenelg looking ultra impressive against North Adelaide.
I think a lot of people would have probably tipped Glenelg to win this one, but not by this sort of margin. The Bays are flying and North Adelaide are really battling compared to what we thought they were doing. I think if we went around a room at the start of the year and there was 10 people there, I reckon 8 of them would have tipped North Adelaide to win the premiership.
Well, we did ask the players who the benchmark team was, and on the show a couple of weeks ago on our podcast version online, half of the players did say North Adelaide were the benchmark team, and that's coming off Norwood winning the premiership. So it does show that you're spot on, Hazy. They were absolutely seen as the benchmark team, but at the moment, that is not what they are.
It's been an interesting start for the Eagles. We know in the SANFL how much one game can potentially turn a season around. Was that it for the Eagles against the Central Districts?
You feel like it probably was. There was a little bit of a shift during the week in terms of energy, the way we're going to play and what we're going to bring, and it was a really workman's-like win against the Dogs, who do bring that style of footy as well. And 2-4, it's not the best record, but Norwood came from 2-4 last year to win the premiership. We all know that. So it's an important win. We take on West Adelaide and Port Adelaide over the next 2 weeks. So, look, 2 teams that aren't potentially going to be in the final. So, if you can get a few wins together in this competition as any team, then you can absolutely get on a roll.
We'll get to the latter in a second, but just quickly, there's one win that separates 9th spot and 4th spot. So, it is very, very tight. Sturt is the only undefeated side in the competition. Geez, they are flying against the Crows. This could have gone either way as well, but a bit of a slugfest at Unley.
It was a slugfest at Unley, and we called it as that. We thought it was going to be a close game, and we might have called it pretty accurately, or at least one of us might have. Let's take a look back at last week.
You're saying the Crows by 10, I'm saying the Double Blues by 10.
Double Blues by 10, so a close game. We think they're at Wigan Oval. Wow, you've picked it.
Yeah.
10 points. You said 10 points exactly. Sturt won by 10 points.
It's funny, I actually don't remember doing that because I just sort of felt, I think I blacked out for a second. And at one stage, I think I was just sort of hovering above myself, watching myself give tips. I'm talking absolute crap. I went for Sturt purely for the home ground advantage because the Crows are pretty vulnerable in terms of their turnaround with different players coming in and out. And Sturt are just getting better and better each week, I reckon. If they can find a way to win these close ones as well, geez, they're dangerous. And they've gone under the radar a little bit. Obviously, we're talking about them now because they're undefeated. But at the start of the year, no one was talking about Sturt in this sort of position.
No, I think with how they finished last year and getting beaten by Glenelg and knocked out in the finals, couldn't kick a score, you're worried about where that score was going to come from, and you thought they'll be around the mark, but they're not necessarily going to be in the top couple of teams, but they are certainly proving everyone wrong at the moment.
South Adelaide is in a lot of trouble at the moment. On the flip side, Port Adelaide have won 3 on the trot, so they're looking pretty good. In saying that, they might lose 1 or 2 players this weekend. We know Todd Marshall is definitely out. Big question marks on what happens with Charlie Dixon, so they might lose one of their bigs. They could lose someone like a Scotty Lycett. But look, they're putting some good solid form together.
They are putting some really good form together, and you don't know which team you're going to get when you come up against Port Adelaide and the Crows, but they are competitive, which they weren't at times last year. So it's good to see that from both teams are really competitive. South Adelaide on the flip side, as you talked about, it is real panic stations at the moment. They've lost to Port Adelaide, they've lost to West Adelaide, and been pumped realistically by Glenelg and North in the last month of footy.
All right, let's have a look at the ladder. No surprises, Sturt sitting pretty on top. 6 games, 6 wins. It's quite remarkable. Followed by by the Bays with 5 wins, 4 wins for the Crows, and then it's a real logjam between 4th up until 9th. Central District's 3 wins, and then it gets down to North Adelaide, Port, Eagles, Westies, South, and then Nord on the bottom, absolutely winless. So look, there's a couple of clear front runners, and that is Sturk, Glenelg, maybe the Crows, but it's going to be interesting, this jostle for 4th and 5th as we progress.
Yeah, it really will, because as we've seen, anything can change in the SANFL. It's such an even competition, and you talked about 4th to 9th there. It's any of those teams could absolutely make the finals this year, and so it will be an interesting watch. Can Glenelg maintain it? They played 4 games at home. Sturt have done the same thing as well. So home ground advantage does make a difference, but at the moment they are the benchmark.
All right, let's take a look at our SANFL summary, brought to you by the good guys at Rejuvenate Massage and Fitness. Absolutely top shelf there. We'll start with the moment of the week, men's, and you want to talk about Josh Wench?
Yeah, it feels like we go to Sturt every week with this, but you sort of have to when they're playing the way they are and winning the way they are. Now, a really good mark here we see on screen that's just basically made sure that they sewed up the game here. He took a strong grab, goes in, kicks the goal. It was the goal that put him in front by 10 points, as we can see here. They're going to be hard to beat, as we touched on, and there's moments like this in games at the moment that they are just they're winning these important contests, and it's making a difference in the games.
Right, talking point of the week, let's talk about the Bays, and they are back in that sort of form that Swan Wing Flag a couple of years ago.
They are. They're back to that 2021 form that they can put on a score very quickly. They kicked 8 goals in the quarter on the weekend. They're doing that week in, week out at the moment. And so they dismantled North. And this is a team that in 2021, we spoke about this just before, but they could come from anywhere and run over the top of the teams, which we're seeing at the moment, and we'll get to that in a second, but they are as dangerous as any side in the competition and almost rivaling Adelaide when it comes to offence.
In terms of being intimidated by a team, if you're the opposition of Glenelg and knowing what you're about to say, this would be really, really hard to, I suppose, come up against, knowing just how strong they finish.
Absolutely. This gives you so much confidence as a group that Glenelg in last quarters this year have outscored opponents by 99 points. So 162 points to 63 points this year. That's the stat of the week. It just shows that if you're playing against Glenelg, it's a little bit like Collingwood in the AFL at the moment. That psyche of that group at 3/4 time goes, we will run over the top here, we will win, versus the psyche of the other group going, oh, we're getting a bit nervous here. We know how well these guys finish. So they are in a really good position at the moment and ready to catapult into the second half of the season.
Is it, from your experience, is it fitness, is it mental, or is it a combination?
It's obviously a combination, but I think it's more mental and personnel. So mental and personnel. If you know that you've got McBean, if you know that you've got Hosey, you've got Reynolds, you've got these guys up and about, you've got Brett Turner, Snook, Partington in the middle, and they're all fit, you know, okay, we've got a good side, we can run over teams. Whereas when you don't quite have those players maybe in the team or fit potentially, then it's, okay, maybe we don't have that same mental application and psyche, and I think that's really important at the end of the day.
All right, time now for some tips and predictions. Who would have thought? We're both sitting on 18, which isn't great, men's. We haven't been super strong in this department.
No, I only got 2 last week out of 5. It's not great going. You picked me by 1 on the weekend, so you've evened it back up. You picked, obviously, South Adelaide and Centrals, who went down, and I went Norwood, Adelaide and South on the weekend that cost me. So let's see if we can get back on track this week. And we'll start off with a game that's coming after the state game. So there's a bye this weekend, obviously, and into the state game. So Cooper Stadium, Friday night, Cooper Stadium is Norwood taking on Adelaide. Now, this game last year was an absolute belter. I think that the woes are going to continue. I'm not sure when their first win's going to come. I'm going to go the Crows to win this, and I reckon 4 of their midfielders will have 30 plus in this game.
This was the game last year where King Panos just absolutely set it alight, didn't it?
Boy, do they need him right now.
Yeah, they really do. They need old school Panos doing his absolute best. So who would have thought that the Redlegs on a Friday night, you'd be sitting there going, they're no chance. But given form, and you can't ignore form, you have to tip the Crows, and you probably have to tip them by a fair bit.
You do, and the only thing that might go in their favour, it's a Friday night game, so the Crows potentially hold a couple of players over for the AFL, and that's what Norwood will obviously need. But yeah, it's the Crows for mine in that one, and same with yourself. How about this next game? West Adelaide in some good form, taking on the Eagles.
Yes, that's going to be at West Adelaide as well. So the Bloods on a bit of a roll. taking on the Eagles, which, who knows, by all accounts, it could have been the turning point against the Dogs. So, look, I'm going to tip the Eagles because you've had a taste. The team knows how to win. They know how to win flags. And there's just too much talent to deny. The Bloods are still developing. They're heading in a really nice direction. But I think the Eagles have found their way.
Yeah, it's starting to build, and a lot of new players from interstate, but also guys that haven't played a lot of footy together are starting to get that continuity, which is helping, and I'll obviously be going the Eagles there. Let's go to Ex-Convenience Oval for the next game. Central's playing really well at home this year. They haven't lost at home. They take on Glenelg, who is as good a form as anyone in the comp. I think Glenelg's going to kick over 100 points in this game. I think the Dogs will kick a fair score too, but I think Glenelg, as we touched on, their offence will be too strong.
Yeah, I think Glenelg will get the job done, but it's just never fun. And right now, I just love, with everything the Dogs are doing, they're doing what it always has been, and that is, it's no one likes going out to Elizabeth and playing the Dogs when they're up and about. They own that home ground advantage. It's not a fun trip going out from Glenelg to Elizabeth. So I think it'll be close. I think Glenelg are just too strong and too polished, but the Dogs will give it a crack, but a close one.
They certainly will. And as we move to the next game, an important game here for North Adelaide in particular, Prospect Oval, they're back at home. They take on Port Adelaide. And again, we're not sure which Port Adelaide team will rock up, but you mentioned before, they won 3 in a row. They're 3 on the trot, North Adelaide going the other direction. Who do you see winning here?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one, isn't it? I'm going to pick the Roosters. I think it could be quite close, but once again, I mean, I just can't go past the talent that the Roosters have got on their roster, and saying that in 2 weeks' time, they could almost be full strength, Port Adelaide. If Dixon and Marshall are back available for the AFL side and everyone looks pretty cherry ripe, then look, it could look pretty good, but I'm still going to go the Roosters tight though.
Yeah, I agree. I think home ground advantage will make a difference here, and obviously Port plays at Alberton, but North at home at Prospect will make a difference there. And then as we look at the last game of the round, is at Flinders University Stadium, South Adelaide at home taking on the Double Blues. Now, we talked about South Adelaide and their woes and their struggles. It's no harder test to come up against the Double Blues and the form they're in at the moment. I think the Double Blues will win, but I think South will be in the game. I think they'll be leading at half-time. They'll put up a really gallant effort, but I think Sturt will run over the top of them.
I know that the players absolutely love Buffalo, and you sort of feel like right now Buffalo would be building these sorts of games up as a potential mini-grand final to save their season. So if South Adelaide can somehow win this and get themselves back on track, all of a sudden they could sort of jump closer towards 6th or 7th and make their way from there. You'd be mad to tip against the Double Blues in their form, but I think we're going to see a lot of spirit and a lot of fight from South Adelaide at home.
Yeah, I agree there. I think we'll see that, and we need to see that because they've lost 4 on the trot. So, and we need to see something change from them, and Buffalo will no doubt get them up and about. But now let's turn our attention to Hazy's multi.
All right, better late than never, but 6 rounds in, and in round 7, let's start making some good money, of course, thanks to our very good mates at Top Sport. Unfortunately, South let me down last week.
We didn't think we were going to see the multi go down last week. We only picked 2 legs. Glenelg did the job comfortably, and South was looking good at half-time, but Port ran over the top of them. So, and we say this every week, in even weaker games, I'm interested to see where you go this week.
Yeah, and never chase your losses. That's not why we're going back to a 3-leg multi. I just sort of feel like I've got more confidence in these games. I think the Crows are going to be too much for the Redlegs. Even though it is at Norwood on a Friday night, I've got the Eagles and a big resurgence for the second part of the year. So I've got the Eagles to beat West Adelaide. And the last game, I was sort of umming a little bit whether I go the Bays over the Dogs. The Dogs are really strong at home this year, so instead I need Jacob Surgeon and the Roosters to finally kick into form and use the talent that they've got. So I'm going to have the Roosters over Port. So Crows, Eagles and Roosters are your wins in a 3-leg multi this week.
I like it. He's left the Centrals game out of it. It's cost you nearly every week, so I don't mind that you steer clear of that. So 3-leg multi, let's see if we can get a win this week. And enjoy the state game this week, a great game, SA taking on WA, and we'll see you next week for round 7 of the SANFL season.